Good afternoon, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the reading of the Book of Heaven. We're in Volume 1, and I just want to resume a little bit of what we read last week. Last week we were reading about that Jesus taught Louisa the way how to put in flight the demons, and then he told her to despise them. So that way they will not bother her again, and to consider them as if they were many ants. And another thing that Jesus taught Louisa was that the most effective way for the soul to remain free for any vain apprehension is to, when the demons, came and bothered her, to say that she doesn't want to offend God, even at the cost of her life, and that she does not want to consent to any temptation of the devil. He also taught her that the devil can make her, go through a lot of confusions and through a lot of tricks. But when she put all her acts in as acts of reparation for the love of God, by acting this way, the devil will not have, any. I really don't know how to say this in English, but that he will not confuse her anymore. In other words, another thing that he taught her was casting away the temptations. Is like, for example, if he said, if he put like in her thoughts something about suicide, that she would answer that you have no permission from God. On the contrary, to your announcement, I want to live. And then he kept on teaching her lots of other things, like, for example, she said that they kept on bothering her like for 1 year and a half. But then it was not as much as they used to do it before. But then she began a new life in a farm called Torre Desperata. And there in that Torre Desperata, she was like unconscious. She felt unconscious. But she told Jesus that she didn't want nobody to know what was happening to her. But unfortunately, in her case, well, her family did see her go unconscious, and then they worried a lot about her. Let me see what else here. Oh, and then Jesus told her to offer herself as a victim of reparation, and that he wanted her to imitate him. So more or less, this is like the summary of what we read last week. Now we're going to continue, and let's start reading. Let's say, she said, after I came round from that state, I felt such pains, such annihilation of myself, that I saw myself as a miserable little worm that was able to do nothing but crawl on the earth. And I said to the Lord, help, your omnipotence knocks me down. I see that if you do not lift me up, my nothingness is undone and will be dissolved. Give me suffering, but I pray you to give me strength, for I feel myself dying. And so an alternation began of visits from our Lord and of torments on the part of demons. The more I resigned myself, the more they increased their rage. A few days after what I said above, I felt I was losing consciousness again. I remember that at the beginning, every time I felt such a state come to me, I thought I was going to leave life. As I lost consciousness, our Lord made himself seen once again with the crown of thorns on his head, all dripping with blood, and turning to me, he said, daughter, take a look at what men do to me. In these sad times, their pride is so great that they have infested all the air, and the stench that spreads everywhere is such that it has reached even before my throne in heaven. They act in such a way as to close heaven by themselves. The miserable ones have no eyes and know the truth because they are obfuscated by sin of pride with the sequel of the other vices which they carry with them. Oh, please give me a relief from so many bitter spasms and a reparation for so many wrongdoings against me. And in saying this, he removed his crown from himself, which did not look like a crown, but all one piece, such that not even a little portion of head remained free, but it was all pierced through by those thorns. As he removed the crown, he drew near me and asked me if I accepted it. I felt so humiliated. I felt such pain because of the offenses they are given that I felt my heart split. And I said to him, Lord, do with me what you want. And so he took it. He drove it in onto my head and he disappeared. Now, who can say the spasm I felt when I came back into myself? At each movement of my head, I thought I would breathe my last. So many were the pains and the prickings I felt in my head, in my eyes, in my ears, behind my neck. I felt those thorns penetrate even into my mouth, and it clenched in such a way that I could not open it to take food. So I would remain sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3, without being able to take anything. When they somehow mitigated, I would feel sensibly a hand that pressed my head and renewed the pains. And sometimes the spasms were such that I would lose consciousness because of the pain. At the beginning, this would happen on certain days, while on others it wouldn't. When they were repeated, it would be 3 or 4 times a day, and they would last sometimes a quarter of an hour, sometimes half an hour, sometimes 1 hour, and then I would remain free. Though feeling very weak and in suffering, I would remain in suffering more or less depending on how much those pains were communicated to me during the state of dozing. So here we have Luisa that she asked Jesus that she wanted to suffer with him as well. And he asked her first that if she wanted to have his thorn, and she said yes. So he put it on her, and then she felt the same pains that he felt, right? So in other words, by doing this, she was imitating him and also doing reparations for the offenses that and the pains that we all give Jesus. So at the beginning, many times she lost consciousness. Sometimes it was a few times, certain days, and then it increased in a day, maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't know if someone wants to say something about this part here.
Well, this is the part of Luisa where she begins her state of victim. Jesus showed her everything that man causes her with her life without him. And he makes her feel it with the crown of thorns, which are thousands and thousands of sufferings. And he showed it that the man causes it of his life. Yeah.
And let me add to that, this is because of the sin of pride.
Yes.
So he's saying that we are blind.
And I think this is the principal sin, the pride of the man.
Mhm.
The
It
pride
has,
is so great that they have poisoned all the air.
Yes.
And this has correlation with the 24 hours of the Passion, with the second coronation for Jesus, that he says is for pride. And over there also says that pride is the worst sin. Well, was evil sin, huh?
Yes.
So I was thinking that perhaps because of that is the first pain that Luisa started to suffer as victim. It didn't start by the heart, for example, or feeling in the body the pains. It started with the crown, and over there in the 24 hours of Passion, the Lord also says that the man was created to be a son of God, like God, but we have because the fall of Adam, we lost everything. So he accept the coronation in a simulation for us men, that we are now crowned with the coronation for our sins, but not the coronation as a son of God. So it has two meanings. Huh?
Mhm. It does have two meanings. And also, I was thinking that that the devil, he is like, I don't know if this is correct or not if I say this, but just tell me if I'm not right, if I'm wrong. He's like the father of pride, because he himself had so much pride that he couldn't handle what God wanted to do. He
Well,
wanted God to be an angel, but no, he said, no, I'm going to be human. And his pride didn't let him
yeah,
understand that.
pride started with him.
Uh-huh. It started with him. And he made his own hell. That in the book of heaven he says that he created his own hell.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has so much pride that one of the things that Jesus told Luisa was uh, despise them, and kind of not bother to consider them at all. And they will just treat them like ants, because they can't stand that. The demons can't stand that because of their pride.
Well, and the other thing is that this is um this is something that we know now until we read the book of heaven, that we are bigger, if I can say like this, bigger than evil.
Mhm.
So Luisa suffered a lot. Mary and Jesus suffer a lot, but it is because of love for us, because it's the only way that that they can redeem us for love of us. So if the one who love us suffer like this, then I think this is what Luisa was thinking, that how will say no to God if he asks her to be victim.
Mhm. He always asks first, right? But then he gives all the graces that we need to go through those sufferings. But after that, she asked him for that pain. She wanted to continue doing it for love of him. So everything is like concentrated in love, right?
Yeah. So this is something that we should understand, to understand the suffering that Luisa is sharing with us through her experience here,
Mhm.
and for us in in the divine will, the things are maybe less I won't say in less great, but it's not physical. We are suffering because our ego should be submitted to God.
Mhm.
This is the kind of suffering for us.
Yeah. Okay, so now I can say the spasm I felt when I came back into myself. At each movement of my head, I thought I would breathe my last. So many were the pains and the prickings I felt in my head, in my eyes, in my ears, behind my neck. I think I read that already, but it's okay. I felt those thorns penetrate even into my mouth, and it clenched into such a way that I would not open it to take food. So I would remain sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3, without being able to take anything. When they somehow mitigated, I would feel sensibly a hand that pressed my head and renewed the pains. And sometimes the spasms were such that I would lose consciousness because of the pain. At the beginning, this would happen on certain days, while on others it wouldn't. When they were repeated, it would be by 3 or 4 times a day, and they would last sometimes a quarter of an hour, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour, and then I would remain free through feeling very weak and in suffering. I would remain in suffering more or less depending on how much those pains were communicated to me during the state of dozing. I also remember that since sometimes because of the suffering in my head, as I said above, I could not open my mouth in order to take food. And since my family knew that I didn't really want to be in the countryside, when they saw that I was not eating, they would attribute it to a fuzz of mine. And naturally, they would become irritated. They would get upset and they would mock me. My nature wanted to resent this, but I saw that what they were saying was not true, but the Lord did not want this resentment. And here is how it happened. So this is a misery, what she is narrating there, right? Resentment is a misery. And of course, she was, her nature wanted to resent, right? The way she was being treated, but the Lord told her something very interesting. He says, one evening while we were at table, and I was in this state of not being able to open my mouth, my family began to get upset. I was so affected that I started to cry. And in order not to be seen, I got up and went somewhere else, with continuing to cry. And I prayed, Jesus Christ and Most Holy Virgin, to give me help and strength in order to bear this trial. But as I was doing this, I felt I was beginning to lose consciousness. Oh God, what pain. The mere thought that my family was going to see me, for until then they had not noticed it. At that moment, I said, Lord, do not permit that they see me. I was so ashamed to be seen that that I myself cannot explain why. And I tried as much as I could to hide in places where I could not be seen. Then I was caught by surprise in such a way that I would not have the time to hide, or at least to kneel. For whatever position I was in, I would remain in it. And they could say I was there praying. Then I would be found out. As I lost consciousness, our Lord made himself seen in the midst of many enemies who were giving him all sorts of insults. Especially they grabbed him and tramped him underfoot. They blasphemed him. They pulled his hair. It seemed to me that my good Jesus wanted to escape from under those fetid souls, and he kept looking Who knows? He might find a friendly hand who would free him, but he found no one. While seeing this, I did not but cry over the pains of my Lord. I wanted to go into the midst of those enemies. Who knows, maybe I could free him, but I not dared to. I said to him, Lord, let me share in your pains. See, so she freely offered herself. Oh, please, if only I could relieve you and free you. As I was saying this, those enemies, they had understood, came against me, but so enraged, and they began to beat me, to pull my hair, to trample me. I had so much fear, I suffered, yes, but within me I was content, because I could see that the Lord was giving a little bit of respite. Afterwards, those enemies disappeared, and I remained alone with my Jesus. I tried to come to compassionate him, but I did not dare to say anything. And he, breaking the silence, said to me, all that you have seen is nothing compared to the offenses they give me continuously. Their blindness and engulfing of earthly things is so great that they reach the point of becoming not only my cruel enemies, but also enemies of themselves. And since their eyes are fixed on the mud, they reach the point of despising the eternal. Who will put an end to so much ingratitude? Who will have compassion for so many people who cost me blood and who lives almost buried in the stench of earthly things? Oh, please, come to me and pray and cry together with me for so many blind who are all eyes for all that gives of earth, and then despise and trample my graces under their filthy feet as if they were mud. Oh, please, lift yourself above all that the earth abhor and despise all that does not belong to me. Do not be affected any more by the insults you receive from your family after you have seen me suffer so much, but take to heart only my honor, the offenses that they give me continuously, the loss of so many souls. Oh, please, do not leave me alone in the midst of so many pains that torture my heart. All that you are suffering so now is little compared to the pains you will suffer. Have I not always told you that what I want from you is the imitation of my life? Take a look at how dissimilar you are from me. Therefore, pluck up courage and do not fear. Well, here we have a lot of things to talk about, right? I guess that Luisa was always like so shy, like that she didn't want nobody to see her, to see what she was going through. But at last her family did, and then they even mocked her because they thought that she was being like a little child, right? These tantrums that the little childs have. But it wasn't that, of course, and we know because she explained exactly what was going on. But then when she saw what was happening to Jesus, she wanted to suffer for the love of him as well. And that is when the demons went after her as well. So what they were doing to Jesus, they were doing to her also. But then they stopped. And then he says something very important. Come in and do this with me, right? Stay with me, accompany me. And at the end he says, well, I want all this I'm teaching you is because I want you to imitate my life. And then he told her, see how dissimilar you are from me? Of course, because she didn't have what he had, right? But now he is teaching her how she could be similar to him. And if she accompanies Jesus in his pain, and she puts his thorns and she makes it live again what he lived 2,000 years ago, right? She is imitating his life. If anyone wants to say something.
I want to add Jesus always used the creature to be able to share his pains and give him relief. Since he cannot suffer any longer, he's looking for help, for a soul. So he needs the help of the creature to be able to pour out his suffering on the humanity of a loving soul. So that's so important. That's why he needs the creature to be able to continue his state of victim for all the creatures that do not love him.
Well, for me, besides what Paris has said recently, two things appear here. Luisa is starting to share with us the external sufferings she receives from other people, from her family. So she was a victim, not just for the Jesus sufferings, but also for the family's suffering, for the way the people understand her situation, which I think we should to give thanks to her too, because the way we understand she is, that she wanted to be not seen for anybody what she's doing, and then they started to treat her like if she's doing something not good, made her feel more suffering. And then Jesus says here to her, but take to heart only my honor, the offenses they give me continuously, and the loss of so many souls. So at the end, as Paris mentioned, this is just love. The only thing that he is asking for him is honor. And then the rest is the offenses, but in a way to forgive the offenses, and then the loss of so many souls.
And also I see here that this is also in this paragraph, it talks about the attachments that we have to, to our family, or it could be to another person or to things or whatever. But in this case, Jesus told her, those insults that you receive from your family, in other words, they're not doing it to you, they're doing it to me. So he's showing her to be detached to what she was, receiving from her family.
Yeah.
And we can see how valuable it is if we go through those things with our families. See, it's painful, but at the same time, we can be thinking about, that we are united with Jesus. Is to him that they are doing that. And that, as a result, will go to those souls that he is trying to save, that we are trying to help him. So it becomes a light for someone. And thanks to that, we are here today. It became a light to us. In the same way, it's going to become a light for somebody else.
Which make it less painful.
It is less painful when you feel, how many souls, Jesus? How many souls is this going to be, worth all this pain that I'm going through?
Mhm. Yeah.
No, and also like sometimes, if our family says to us things that we don't like, for example, and we know that it's not right. Well, if we don't see Jesus in that particular situation, right? We can resent ourselves for what they are saying, and then we can talk back. But Jesus is teaching her, right? That not to resent when her family does what they do, just to imitate him.
Mhm.
So he's teaching her little by little how to work with her miseries and the work that he wants to do in her.
So when I am going through these situations that Luisa is describing with the family, what helps me is to repeat Jesus' words. I want you to go through this. It is not them, it is me. Look at me. I mean, it's painful, but repeating those words in my head gets me through it.
Even
Yeah.
even say what he says there. He says, "Oh, please do not leave me alone in the midst of so many pains that torture my heart."
Mhm.
Those pains are his pains, right?
Mhm.
Yes. And the creature that comes to live in the divine will gives him all the refreshment and love that everyone should give him. And this creature is paying in love, adoration for all humanity
Mhm.
to alleviate the divine justice and appease the scourges. So that's so important.
Yeah.
And you're so right. And in one of this paragraph, he says that he was trying to find a friendly hand that can help him, right? And that he could not find no one.
Yes.
But you just said what happens when a person lives in the divine will. That's exactly what that soul does, is to accompany him and to free him, right, from his pain. Alleviate him, not free him, to alleviate his pain. Because if we free him from his pain, then he will not be the eternal um, victim.
Yeah.
I heard it. Dr. Tomasini said that the other day, and I said, "Wow, yeah, it's so true. We can alleviate him, but we cannot free him from his pain because he is the eternal victim, and we are victims with him."
Mhm.
Interesting, right?
And if we live in the divine will, we will be eternal victims too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Um, and here he says something very, very painful because he says, "You see me how they beat me, but this is not the pain that is for him so hard. It is that it says, all that you have seen is nothing compared to the offenses that they give me continuously. The blindness, the engulfing of earthly things is so great. So for him that we are not exactly his his child, that we lost all the privilege of the divine life that Adam has before the fall, is the most painful thing that he is receiving. So that's that's something that I said I cannot understand, but the time of God, we can understand also that he waits so much for the divine will to be revealed to the humans. But when I see how we are living now, that that we are worse than he describes here, I understand that his love is giving us the best he can against the worst we are doing. I don't know if I can explain what I mean, that his gift now is so great compared with our behavior now. But the medicine that he is giving is so lovely against the evil behavior that we have now.
And Jesus says in other volumes that a soul that lives in the divine will, and of course is living his life and is doing divine acts, is going to shorten the time for his kingdom to be extended. So that is why it's so important for us to know who really Jesus is, to know him just like who he really is, because we were created in the likeness and in his image, right? To live his life, because the life that we live is not the life that he wants us to live. It's that a life that is distorted in a human way. And this life, just like he says here, is cruel to him, because this life of ours is death, and he suffers and he's in pain, because that's not what he wants from us. He wants us to give him back what he wants to give us, right? But he cannot give it to us because we don't want it. And because we don't want it is his pain. But now Luisa is the one who started all this. Thanks God that she was, there's another part of the book of heaven that says that he went through all the world, through all the generations, and he saw this little soul, and he picked her, right? So thank you, Luisa.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so we can continue, right?
Yeah.
So after this, I returned into myself. Then I realized that I was surrounded by my family. They were crying and were all in distress, and they had such fear that that state might happen again, and especially that I might die, that they brought me back to Corato as quickly as they could so that I might be observed by doctors. I can't explain why I felt such pain at the thought that I was to be visited by doctors, that many times I cried and lamented to the Lord, saying to him, "How many times, O Lord, I prayed you to let me suffer hiddenly. This was my only and sole contentment. Now I am deprived also of this. Oh, please tell me, what shall I do? You alone can help me and relieve me in my affliction. Don't you see how many things they say? One thinks in one way, one in another. One wants have one remedy applied to me, one another. They are all lies over me in such a way that they give me no more peace. Oh, please help me in so many pains, for I feel like failing me." And the Lord benignly added, "Do not want to afflict yourself because of this. What I want from you is that you abandon yourself as though dead in my arms." See, this is such a cruel sentence. Just abandon yourself as though dead in my arms, until you keep your eyes opened to look at what I'm doing. and that what the creature do and say, I cannot operate freely upon you. Don't you want to trust me? Don't you know how much I love you, and that everything I allow, either through creatures or on part of the demons, or directly from me, is for your true good and serves nothing other than to lead the soul to that state for which I have chosen her? Therefore, I want you to remain in my arms with your eyes closed, without looking at and investigating this or that, trusting me completely and letting me operate freely. If then you want to do the opposite, you will lose much time and will come to oppose what I want to do with you. As for creatures, use profound silence. Be benign and submissive with everyone. Let your life, your breath, your thoughts and affections be continuous acts of reparation to placate my justice, offering me along with them the brothers from creatures, which will not be few. What a paragraph, right?
Mm.
So what can you say, Paris?
Abandon yourself in my arms, as if you were dead. That phrase it's huge for us, because we never had faith in Jesus.
Mhm.
We continually do it our life without him. But we need to act like that. Dead to our affection, dead to our thoughts, to our affection of the family, the human people, the problems, all we need to act like that. So difficult to do that, but it's so necessary to enter to this life. So Jesus said, do you want to trust me? Don't you want to trust me? So that's question is for us. Don't trust in Jesus. Don't trust in his word. Don't trust in his will. So that question is for us.
See, so I can see here other miseries, like one of them is not to trust God. That is a misery. Be untrustful. So Jesus is telling you, don't you trust me? Let me do freely what I need to do. But of course, Luisa is learning, is getting to know Jesus. And until she doesn't know Jesus, or until we don't get to know Jesus, how can we trust somebody that we don't know? Doesn't that happen to you guys? That happens to me all the time. You know, if I see somebody and I don't know that person, I'm kind of, okay, you know, if I get to know that person, I can trust that person. But if we don't know Jesus, we cannot trust him. So she is learning how to trust Jesus. So that's one of the miseries that she has, which is our misery too. It's not because that's her misery, it's that our misery too. And there's another one that he said, to be submissive to everyone. A misery, the misery would be obstinate, right? That is the misery, is not to be submissive to others. Obstinación in Spanish.
Yes.
So in this, you know, these paragraphs are very, you know, it gives me like clues of how can I like look at myself, right? And in her, because she is like the mirror that I have in front of me, so I can say, oh yes, I do have this. So I need to do what she did, right? Jesus is telling her, well, you know something? I'm going to put you to fight with the demons. I'm going to put you to fight with the demons. And when you fight with the demons, all those miseries that you have are going to be canceled, right? They're going to be all the opposite. And there's another thing that he doesn't want her to react to the world. So I remember that there's one in one of the volumes, I don't remember exactly, maybe it's in this volume as well, that says that just put yourselves in the hand of a like if she's a little lamb. I remember Guadalupe saying something like that the other day, right? In the hands of the
It's here in volume 1 that
Volume
says that for those who make you suffer, you like a lamb kissing the hand of your killer.
of your killer, yes. So just be submissive, don't say nothing, and then he says it very, very clearly. Use profound silence.
Yes.
Don't talk back. Profound silence. Let them do to you whatever they want to do, because it's to me that they're doing it.
No need to defend yourself.
You need to defend yourself.
Be
And then
benign and submissive with everyone.
And then he said, oh, and then everything that happens to you, take it like if it comes from me, like it comes directly from me, because that is the way that he is going to purify us, right? He says, even if it comes from the demons, take it like it's directly from me.
If we want to be like Jesus, if we want to have this life, we have to take all his suffering and make their own for his glory and the salvation of all our brothers. Reparation, he continues acts of reparation to applicate my justice. So that is the exchange of life, taking his life and making it our own. In every act that we have to suffer and crucify ourselves for all our brothers who do not do so.
Yes.
It's priceless.
As Penelope says before, that some words of Jesus help her to feel or to understand the situation she is going through and make her suffer the less. All this paragraph, line by line, is something that we like the people have it like earrings in our ear. I don't know how to represent something that would be night and day all our life. We should practice line by line. All this paragraph is immense, and is everything here in this paragraph is needed. Nothing that we miss here make us live in the divine will. If we miss something here, we are not going through.
Yeah, this chapter is like learning to add 1 by 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. You cannot move on unless you know this. I find
all the chapter, but this paragraph is
a necessity.
Yeah. Without it, there is nothing.
Yeah. And, I find myself, if I'm going through something, I find myself running to the book number 1, and finding the highlighted areas. And it's like a consolation, like, I don't know how to explain, like when you go to the doctor and they put a flu shot, so if you get the flu, it's not that bad. this is how it works for me when I read it and I'm going through something. It helps me so I can get through it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And look at what he says also. He wants you to remain in his arms, and he's telling us without looking at and investigating this or that.
Mhm.
So because that's what usually that's the first thing we do. We're trying to do, trying to figure out why.
Mhm. And that is pride.
Right.
Mhm. That's the the famous question. Why?
Why?
Mhm.
We need
Why
the
to me?
answer. The
Huh?
answer right now. We need this answer right now, you know?
Exactly.
Why? Yeah.
Why happened this to me?
Uh-huh. Exactly.
But for someone that doesn't know about the book of heaven and divine will, they don't understand,
Mhm.
because I try to explain and they don't understand.
But also, Penelope, I have to put myself in this right because it concerns to all of us. Sometimes we don't understand the
Mhm.
language that Jesus uses in the book of heaven, and sometimes we just don't want to understand it. Sometimes it's because we don't have the light, the divine light, to make us understand, but it's because we're not disposing ourselves to understand what he wants to tell us through his teachings. Like for example, here he tells Luisa, um, don't if then you want to do the opposite. So he's telling her exactly what she needs to do. But then if she wants to do the opposite, look what he tells her. You
You
will lose
lose.
much time. And that happens to all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do the opposite. Jesus says, look, take everything like everything is coming from me. Well, that's one of the things that we don't do. We start asking questions, right? Just the why. And then sometimes we say, well, I am in this in the divine will. I'm learning all the teachings that Jesus is telling me and everything. And I'm kind of trying to know who he is, but I don't trust him. Trust what he says. I don't believe what he says. So then he says, well, you're losing too much time and will come to oppose what I want to do with you.
Yes.
So that is something that we need to think about, what am I doing with this beautiful way that Jesus is telling us the way how to live. The way how to live is to keep our eyes open, but looking at him and to put ourselves like dead in his arms.
Because that means what he says after the phrases you were reading that says, trusting me completely and letting me operate freely, which means you don't believe me.
Mhm.
We lose so much time thinking in so many things in our problems.
Mhm.
And all we need to do to live is abandoning God.
That is the clue word, abandonment.
God.
Mhm.
He resolved all the problems we have.
Mhm.
So we need to live and abandoning God. It's just this is the club, like Mirta said.
Mhm.
But we don't trust him. And we need to have the answer why this happened to me again.
Mhm.
And we lose so much time in that.
Yes. And you know why? Because Jesus said why? Because we are dissimilar to him.
Mm.
We
Yes.
are not similar to him.
We don't
We
understand we don't understand why happened this to us, but because we don't see with the eye of God, you know?
That's the importance to read the book of heaven, because show us all the creation, how certainly it was, with the house that are not described in the Bible. So when we understand that we are the light, not just the life, but we are light, like He's light. When we understand that we are created, what means image and what means likeness, I suppose we should to believe, and we should to accept what Jesus is asking for us. But if we don't read, we don't love Him, because when we see what He went through and the Trinity, what the Trinity went through, we started to, I'm talking for myself, we started to love them more, and try to make them happy.
Yeah, I think that in life we, one way or another, our conscience is illuminated, right? In a way, we only when we get to be stricken by His light is when we really can understand that we are not what we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're so different.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't get it the first time. I mean, I have to read many times, and every time that I read, I understand something different. And I say, oh my gosh, why I didn't see this before? And I have been reading this many times.
Yeah.
Those are the new, let me see, nuevo cielo, nueva tierra, the new heavens and new earth. When we read the book of heaven, right? And we keep on reading and reading, and He says that every time is something new that He takes out and gives us. So those are the new heavens and the new earth.
I think this will happen all our life, Penelope.
Mm-hmm.
Because and sometimes depend on the circumstances we are living.
Yes.
And these new heavens and these new worlds and new lives are constantly given for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time we empty ourselves of ourselves, we understand more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another thing that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we
But it also depends on our disposition.
yes.
Yes.
And we need to understand that this is the exchange of life. So it's no longer of life.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that we will understand later on as we read is that this exchange of life is that we give our life to Him and we have His life. But the life that we give to Him, He takes it to the cross, right? To the cross. And then it's resurrected with Him. So that is beautiful. My life is nothing, is worth nothing, but it's worth a lot to Him because He takes my life and He puts it in the cross, and then He gives me the life that I'm supposed to get.
I cost Him His blood.
Yeah. Well, my brothers and sisters, I think we leave it here and then we continue next week. Right?
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, Mirta.
Oh,
And
thank you
thanks to you.
guys. Yeah, for being so continuously every week reading this beautiful book of heaven, so we can understand better his ways, and we can become him just like he wants us to become. So I'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.